Good Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Michelle Beck. Breaking this morning, the federal government is officially back open after the longest shutdown in U.S. history. The bill passed the House 222 to 209, with 6 Democrats voting in favor and 2 Republicans against. NBC's Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
With a vote in the House,
the bill is passed,
and a presidential signature overnight. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history is now over.
The federal government will now resume normal operations.
Furloughed federal workers getting back on the job today after 43 days. They and those who worked without pay waiting to hear when their back pay checks will arrive. As airlines work to return to full capacity, the FAA freezing flight reductions at 6% instead of the planned 10% by Friday, with easing staffing shortages set to gradually unsnarl weeks of delays and cancellations.
I think it's horrible how politicians, all of them, use us as pawns.
SNAP federal food assistance will also grind back into gear for the millions of Americans still waiting for their full November payments, turning to food banks instead.
Massive increases in families needing our assistance.
As the consequences unwind, the two parties pointing blame at each other.
Absolutely no question in anybody's mind now that the Democrats were responsible for this.
Donald Trump and Republicans made the decision to shut the government down. Would rather do that than provide health care that's affordable.
As Democrats face their own divisions over the deal moderates in the Senate reached with Republicans that did not include health care reforms, an issue Republicans say they're now ready to address with the government back in business. The Senate's top Republican promised a vote on extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits Democrats had been holding out for, but Republicans largely oppose. President Trump again floated the idea of giving money directly to Americans instead, though there are no details on how that would work. And the clock is ticking until government funding expires again at the end of January. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
While the government shutdown has officially ended, it will take some time to get everything back up and running. And still today, over 1,000 flights are canceled and nearly 9,000 delays are expected across the country. For many travelers, it's coming down to a last-minute decision: stick to the backup plan or head to the airport and take the chance of making the flight. People are quite optimistic, like this passenger we talked to who's headed to Florida for a family wedding.
It was just a matter of, okay, how are we going to get there? If the flight is canceled, we'll just start driving.
Now, flights are still reduced to 6% per the FAA, but this morning, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced they won't cut them anymore because controllers are returning to work. Duffy says they'll get 70% of their paychecks within 24 to 48 hours after the shutdown ends. Employees will get the rest within a week after that. Lawmakers are trying to prevent future shutdown chaos from affecting air travel. There is a bill introduced that would allow the FAA to use its Aviation Trust Fund during funding lapses. For now, the agency cannot tap into it during a shutdown. A horrific story out of Cokato this morning. Police say they are looking for more answers after a man was jailed accused of killing his co-worker with a sledgehammer. The woman was attacked Tuesday morning at Advanced Process Technologies in Cokato, about an hour west of Minneapolis. According to charges, 40-year-old David DeLong admitted to killing his 20-year-old coworker, Amber Check. DeLong told police he didn't like her and had been planning to kill her. Investigators say it was all caught on surveillance cameras. Amber's father telling KARE 11 he is heartbroken. His daughter was outgoing, hardworking, and helped anyone in need. This morning, we have an update on the case against Vance Belter, the man charged with assassinating Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband and shooting Senator John Hoffman and his wife. In federal court yesterday, his defense team told the judge the government shutdown was impacting their work on the case, slowing them down as they try to sort through hundreds of thousands of pages of evidence, as well as hundreds of hours of audio and video. Federal prosecutors say they are still deciding whether to seek the death penalty. Belter's next court hearing is scheduled for February. Now, some great news for riders of the light rail this morning. Metro Transit announcing it is adding more security this winter. Joe McCoy has more on what riders can expect.
5 p.m. on a weekday means the light rail is filling up. And in an effort to increase safety and better riders' experience,
people need to feel safe on the system.
Metro Transit announced today that more officials will be present on light rail vehicles and at stations.
And if you're committing a crime on transit, you are going to be held accountable.
We wanted to see how riders felt for themselves, so we bought a ticket and took a ride.
What is your overall experience on it? Do you feel safe while riding the Blue Line?
Yes. Frequently I see people checking fares or public safety officers checking on people who might need assistance.
My own experience has always been positive.
Yeah. Metro Transit Police says serious crime on the light rail is down 21% compared to this time last year. But they say they are aware that the perception of safety from the public doesn't always reflect the statistics.
We are focusing on official presence because riders tell us that when they see a Metro Transit official on the system, that increases their sense of safety.
Metro Transit says you will see a particular increase in officials during peak riding hours and at the end of service each day.
Everyone deserves to feel safe on their journey, anytime and anywhere.
With 116 police officers, 26 community service officers, and nearly 100 trip agents who make sure riders bought a ticket and are following rules, Metro Transit says they are at their highest staffing level since 2021. This allows them to help in different ways.
But we also recognize some people on our system need help, not handcuffs. And we are committed to connecting those people to the services that they need.
Now, Metro Transit says it is trying to grow its facilities team to improve station conditions and cleanliness. There will also be contracted security officers at more than a dozen light rail stations. Now, in just a few hours, the convicted mastermind behind the kidnapping and murder of a Minneapolis realtor will learn his sentence. Last week, a jury found Lyndon Wiggins guilty on all counts in the death of Monique Bao. He's expected to be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Sentencing is set to begin at 2:30 this afternoon. Happening right now, a legal battle over a homeless encampment in South Minneapolis returns to court. Back in September, the Minneapolis City Council sued property owner Hamoudi Sabri after he allowed people experiencing homelessness to stay on his privately owned parking lot. City officials say Sabri's property is a health and safety hazard after a deadly mass shooting there in September. Sabri argues he is providing for the unhoused while the city lets the problem grow. And now, yesterday was another beautiful night in the sky. Take a look at these gorgeous photos of the Northern Lights posted on our That's So Minnesota Facebook page. Thanks for sending those in. From pinks and purples to vivid greens, there is a reason why the Northern Lights look so incredible. Morgan Wolf went out to find the answer.
As a lifelong Minnesotan, it felt like last night was the brightest I have ever seen the Northern Lights before, especially in the metro. But let me ask the scientist. Hey there, Ben Derry.
Hi, Morgan. Yes, it was a really cool show last night. It was probably one of the greatest Northern Lights displays that we've seen in the last 20 years. And the fact that we were able to see it within the Twin Cities metro is very rare, and it was a very special time.
Flying high above the sky or in a backyard, people taking in the sights of the solar storm, proudly sharing their shots on social media.
And I woke up our 6-year-old, whose name happens to be Aurora.
Mm-hmm.
We took her outside and she saw the Northern Lights for the very first time. So
many can relate to little Rory, but even those who have seen the Northern Lights before, they've never seen them like this. The red color's even more of a rarity, as they're above the green colors in the atmosphere and aren't always visible, showing just how strong the storm was up above.
So we are on the waning side of solar cycle 25 that actually peaked about a year ago. Solar cycle 25, usually when we're in these peak cycles, we see more energy from the sun. We see more solar flares. And traditionally, the biggest solar flares happen on the tail end of these cycles. So it makes sense that we're seeing some really cool shows about this time.
Which means more chances to take in the show.
Auroral oval, if you want to call it that, was basically right over us. So you could look up and it looked like everything was funneling to one area. When that happens, you know the oval is directly overhead.
Morgan Wolf, KARE 11 News.
11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11 News. 11
In less than 12 hours, a group of Minneapolis Starbucks baristas heads to the picket line as part of a nationwide ULP strike. Just last week, 92% of the Starbucks Workers United union authorized the strike, saying the company failed to meet their demands on pay, staffing, and labor violations. Today's strike comes on Starbucks' biggest sales day of the year, Red Cup Day. They'll be handing out these free reusable cups to customers who order a holiday drink. If you do plan to get one, here's what you should know. A Starbucks spokesperson tells USA Today the overwhelming majority of its locations are expected to remain open today and serve customers as normal. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.